What's up guys, Lon here from Android Authority, and a lot of people have been saying that the Note 7 is just an S7 Edge with an S Pen, but is this really a fair way to assess the Note 7? Well, that's what we're going to find out with the Note 7 versus the S7 Edge. So obviously there are a lot of similarities between the Note 7 and S7 Edge, but there are quite a bit of differences as well that really separate these two devices, and we'll get into what those are as we go through this comparison. First up is the design. Both the Note 7 and S7 Edge are made of glass on the front and back with a smooth metal frame sandwiched in between, and as you would expect, they look and feel very similar. This is by no means a bad thing because they're both beautiful looking devices and feel extremely solid in the hand. The only downside, of course, is that these two phones attract a lot of fingerprints, but that's just to be expected when you're dealing with phones made predominantly of glass. The Note 7 does borrow a lot of design cues from the S7 Edge, like the slight tapers on the backside, the rounded corners, and that curved edge front glass, but Samsung has managed to refine the design even more on the Note 7. The curved edges on the front are still noticeable, but they're not quite as drastic as the S7 Edges, and I personally like this better because you're less likely to run into accidental presses with your palms or fingers. The metal frame has also been more seamlessly integrated into the glass on the Note 7, making the phone feel like one unified piece of material, and this may sound like a minor detail, but it actually makes a huge difference in how much smoother and more comfortable the Note 7 feels. The S7 Edge already feels incredible, but the Note 7 takes it to another level and is a testament of how Samsung continues to make this glass and metal design better with each flagship. The Note 7 is larger than the S7 Edge, but it's not by much, and the curved glass allows Samsung to make the Note 7 smaller than previous Notes despite having the same screen size. One difference between these two phones that you cannot see is that the Note 7 is covered in Gorilla Glass 5 versus the Gorilla Glass 4 on the S7 Edge. There's been a little bit of controversy with the Gorilla Glass 5 on the Note 7, which is a whole topic on its own that we're not going to get into, but it's supposed to be a lot stronger and more durable than Gorilla Glass 4. Other than that, the rest of the design between the Note 7 and S7 Edge is pretty typical Samsung. You have the power button on the left side, volume buttons on the right, and the SIM slot that also doubles as a micro SD card slot for expandable storage. On the bottom is the headphone jack and single speaker, but on the Note 7 you'll notice that Samsung has finally switched over to USB Type-C over the micro USB that was used on the S7 Edge, and of course on the Note 7 you also have that dedicated slot for the S Pen. Like every S Pen before it, this year's S Pen has brought a lot of improvements. It has a much finer point and more levels of pressure sensitivity for a much more accurate and precise writing experience. Perhaps the most important improvement of all is that it can no longer be put in backwards. Samsung has also added a bunch of new features to take advantage of the revamped S Pen. You can now hover the S Pen over the screen to translate text or images, magnify the screen, or create a GIF or GIF from something like a YouTube video to share with your friends as long as it's not DRM protected material. The screen off memo has also been improved, giving you the ability to scroll and write much longer memos, and you can even pin important memos to the always on display to make it easily visible for up to 1 hour. The Note 7 has a slightly larger 5.7-inch display over the 5.5-inch display of the S7 Edge, but aside from the size difference, they're practically identical. They're both Quad HD resolution and Super AMOLED, which means they're extremely sharp and colors are very vibrant, saturated, and full of inky deep blacks. They're absolutely stunning displays to look at, and everything from web browsing, watching YouTube videos, and playing games is a fantastic experience. Because of the curved edges, the Note 7 also now shares the same edge features from the S7 Edge. This means you can have shortcuts to your most commonly used apps, favorite contacts, tasks, and a variety of other information like sports scores and the weather just by swiping inwards on the edge of the display. The Note 7 also has built-in support for streaming HDR content, so movies and TV shows from Amazon, for example, look even more amazing on this super bright and beautiful display. You really have to see it in person to truly appreciate it, and it's only going to get better as more HDR titles get released. Another really cool feature about the Note 7's display is that you can downscale the resolution to 1080p and even 720p to help extend your battery life. Right below the displays is Samsung's standard home button that also doubles as a fingerprint sensor, and at this point we're all pretty much aware of how well Samsung's fingerprint sensors work. It's fast, accurate, reliable, and works well in adding an extra layer of security to your smartphone, but with the Note 7, Samsung took it another step further by adding an iris scanner. The iris scanner utilizes infrared to scan your eyes to unlock your phone, and it actually works surprisingly well, especially for a first generation feature. It does, however, take a little bit longer than using your fingerprint simply because there's extra steps involved. After you wake up your phone, you actually have to swipe up before it starts scanning your eyes. This swipe up gesture is really meant to prevent the phone from accidentally scanning your eyes when you don't want it to, but it would have been nice if Samsung gave us the option to disable the swipe if we wanted. Here in the States, the Note 7 and the S7 Edge are packing the same exact setup with the Snapdragon 820 and 4GB of RAM, and with the same software and same hardware, it's really no surprise that both of these phones have very identical performances in day-to-day use. A lot of people may be disappointed that the Note 7 doesn't have an improved processor or more RAM, but the Snapdragon 820 and 4GB of RAM is still plenty of power. They're both blazing fast in day-to-day use. Everything from opening apps, multitasking, web browsing, and playing heavy games all work extremely well, and we finally have some Vulkan supported game titles available on Google Play that is going to give you superior graphics and gameplay on both the Note 7 and the S7 Edge. The Note 7 also carries the same IP68 water and dust resistance that was reintroduced on the S7 earlier this year, and this protection on the Note 7 includes both the phone itself and the S Pen, so no matter what phone you pick from Samsung this year, you're guaranteed to have this protection, which is great for everyone. As far as battery life goes, the Note 7 packs a 3500 mAh battery, which is the largest battery we've ever seen on a Note device, but it's still a tad smaller than the 3600 mAh pack on the S7 Edge, but I would say that the difference is pretty negligible. If you're looking for phones that get 5 to 6 hours of screen on time on a consistent basis and can easily last a full day even on heavy use, the Note 7 and S7 Edge are two phones that can do that for you. They both also carry fast charging and fast wireless charging, which really comes in handy when you're dealing with two phones with massive batteries, so no matter how you decide to charge your phone, you're going to be able to do it pretty quickly. The Note 7 also features the same exact camera sensors as the S7 with the 5 megapixel front-facing shooter that works really well for selfies, especially because of that wide angle. Then along the rear you have the 12 megapixel camera with the f1.7 aperture, optical image stabilization, and that super fast dual pixel autofocus technology. The camera from the S7 is still one of the best smartphone cameras on the market, if not the best, so you can't really blame Samsung for sticking with the same sensor. It takes fantastic images in almost all lighting conditions with plenty of detail, sharpness, color, and depth. For the most part, the images do look very similar, which is not all that surprising, but it does look like Samsung made some tweaks to the image processing. The Note 7's in-camera sharpening appears much more natural and not as aggressive as the S7's, and the white balance issues that plague the S7 in low light doesn't seem to be a problem on the Note 7, which is awesome because these couple of changes only make this camera even better. The most notable improvements with the camera is actually with the camera app itself. The S7's camera software was already pretty clean and easy to navigate, but with the Note 7, Samsung has made their camera software much more intuitive. You can still double tap the home button to launch the camera like usual, and it packs all the same features from before like selective focus, live broadcast, and the Pro mode, but the interface has been revamped with a much flatter and more simplistic look. It's also much easier to use and navigate with just one hand by using swipe gestures. You can swipe to the right to access the camera modes, to the left to bring up the various different camera filters, or swipe up or down to switch between the front and rear cameras. Both the Note 7 and S7 Edge are on the same version of Android with Android Marshmallow, along with Samsung's TouchWiz skin on top, and for the most part, the general look and feel is very similar. You have many of the same core functions like multi-window and the theme store, but Samsung has made a lot of subtle and some not so subtle changes to the interface of the Note 7. If you look closely, you'll notice that many of the app icons have been revamped with new graphics and a more uniform look, and certain system UI elements like the notification shade and settings menu have been given a slight facelift to match the rest of the changes that they've made throughout TouchWiz. The settings menu is cleaner and much more streamlined, making it a lot easier to find what you're looking for, and they've dialed back a lot of the colors for a much more minimalistic appearance. Instead of the big, bright, bold colors that you used to have before on the S7 and S7 Edge, they've now gone with a softer, more eggshell-like color scheme that's a lot more appealing and easier on the eyes, and this change can be found throughout the entire interface, including Samsung's own apps. The only change that I'm not a fan of is that the toggles in the notification shade on the Note 7 are no longer scrollable like they were on the S7, and to get the brightness slider, it now takes 2 swipes down on the notification shade instead of 1. Samsung also consolidated all of their various different note-taking apps into one app called Samsung Notes, and whether you use this app or not, this change makes the process of finding the appropriate app for taking a note or drawing a lot less confusing and reduces some of the bloatware. The Note 7 also brings a new secure folder to lock away any apps or sensitive information that you don't want anyone else to access, and this can be locked with a standard password, PIN, lock pattern, your fingerprints, and even the brand new iris scanner. TouchWiz is surprisingly pleasant to use on the Note 7, and Samsung has made a lot of really nice changes, so hopefully we'll see this trickle down to the S7 and S7 Edge in a future update. So yes, it's pretty clear at this point that the Note 7 borrows a lot from the S7 Edge, but with that being said, it's an entirely different phone that offers its own unique experience. Despite how much it has in common with the S7 Edge, this still feels very much like a Note device should feel, and not just an S7 Edge with an S Pen like a lot of people have been saying. The S7 Edge did a lot of things right, so you can't really blame Samsung for bringing many of the hardware and software features over to the Note 7, and by doing so, this also simplifies the decision-making process for consumers. Now, is the Note 7 worth upgrading to if you have the S7 Edge? Absolutely not. Not just because they share a lot of similarities, but also because the Note 7 is not meant to be an upgrade for people coming from the S7 Edge. The Note 7 is meant for people coming from much older devices like last year's S6s, the Note 5, and even the Note 4. If you're coming from any of those devices, this will feel like an amazing upgrade, and you won't regret making the leap to 7. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hopefully you all enjoyed this comparison between the Note 7 and the S7 Edge. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, what you guys think of these two devices. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up down below, and also subscribe to the channel, which is also down below. And feel free to follow us on social media like Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, Google+, all that good stuff will be linked down below. And feel free to follow me on Twitter as well. And check the website, androidauthority.com, because we are your source for all things Android.